Hey, everybody, it is time for Trash Talk. It's Tuesday morning, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. And usually when you tune into us, you're expecting some funny shit. That ain't happening this morning because both of us have been talking over the last, actually last 4 weeks since the massacre in Uvalde. And we've just been pissed off about this whole gun thing and the gun control thing and all. So we thought, you know what, that's going to be the subject this morning. And very quickly, we just want to give a shout out to our good friend David Jordan over at the Patriot Sandwich Company in Denton. Great sandwiches. And the thing about David Jordan, he is a veteran and he looks out for other veterans. And part of the profits from every sandwich that's sold goes to help those veterans that are in need. And reach out to him, get a great sandwich sometime. Tell him you heard about us on Trash Talk. And we thank you very, very much for doing that.
Absolutely, David.
So, here just a month ago, and what really pulls, I hate to use the phrase, pulls my trigger, is that everybody says, oh, we got to do something. We got to do something right away. And all. Now it's a whole month afterwards. Everybody's just talking. Well, we're going to have a committee look into this and all. When you go back all the way to Columbine and Parkland and
Hook.
Yeah, I mean, when do we stop talking and start doing?
I don't know. We're how many months into the year are we now?
We're halfway through the year.
228 mass shootings this year in the United States, and we're halfway through the year.
And what's the common denominator with all of those shootings? It's a weapon. It's guns that kill people, and it's not just guns. It's automatic weapons. And look, I'm wearing a cap, the U.S. Army. That's the only place other than law enforcement where an automatic weapon really needs to be issued. Not to individuals. You cannot even try to convince me that there is a reason for somebody to go hunting or whatever with an automatic rifle like an AR-15. Even to go to a gun range and to shoot at paper targets. Do you realize that in 3 seconds you can completely obliterate a paper target at a gun range?
Oh, I've seen it
with an AR-15. Absolutely. So there's lots of rhetoric out there, and I don't care how much of a sympathizer you are with the NRA and what they stand for. And I'm not saying that we eliminate the Second Amendment.
No.
And all, but we do have the ability to just say, okay, you can buy weapons, but there are certain weapons that you cannot buy. There are certain weapons that are issued to military and to our first responders, and you cannot buy it because you know what? The bad guys are still going to find a way to buy them.
Well, and you're right, and okay, so you brought up the Second Amendment. And one of the things I hear all the time, it's my God-given right. Look, first off, stop saying it. It's not your God-given right.
Right.
God give that to you. A bunch of men wrote that, okay?
Yeah.
Number one, they wrote that at a time when they had just became who we are.
It was the end of the Revolutionary War, and they were getting ready to form this new country. And they, here, you know what? I got it right here. This is the Constitution of the United States. Let me read you the Second Amendment. People don't realize the Second Amendment is one sentence. One sentence. And it reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state.
Absolutely.
The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Okay. Now, right there, this is what I was getting at. You people that argue the Second Amendment take one line They take the one line, the 4 words,
Partial line.
partial line. It also says well regulated, which means that they had the foresight to say, hey, wait a minute. We don't know what the future is going to hold, but we want to be able to have the option to regulate it. Yes, you should be able to protect your family, your business, your land, your friends, whatever. But we want to be able to regulate that. We're not going to take your guns away, but we want to be able to regulate it in case things get out of hand or Jim from next door shouldn't have a gun.
Right.
People, when they argue the right, and you hear it in the state of Texas, and I know we're going to make some people upset, and I know some people are going to comment, and that's fine. It's okay. We're here to talk about this. This is not calling out an individual. This is conversations that need to happen. Even though we both might get heated or passionate.
That's right.
When you sit here, and I hear people in Texas, some of our quote unquote leaders here in Texas, keep using God-given right, God-given. You know how backwards we sound? You know how ignorant we sound? You know how stereotypical the state of Texas sounds? They are literally fitting into the stereotype that most of the country views them as already. They're fitting into that stereotype. Give me my guns and give me my oil and give me my American flag. And you should have your guns. I am not a guy. I've got so many friends that own guns. I've got a really good friend that, there you go.
Me.
I've got a really good friend that owns a lot of guns. He's got a lot to say about this. He is the guy, don't take my guns, but he is a smart man. He's also got a follow-up to that says not everybody should have one.
That's why I just don't understand how for decades now we're just talking about this gun control. Keep in mind, we're talking about gun control. We're not talking about taking people's rights away from gun ownership. There are some people that own guns. I do. I own 5 guns. I use them at the range and all, and I enjoy shooting with other friends. Sometimes it's a competition and all. There are people that I understand have a love for hunting, to go out and to shoot deer and to shoot wild boar and to shoot pheasant and quail and rabbits and all. But the thing I have a problem with is the choice of weapons that a hunter will use when he goes hunting. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know of somebody that goes hunting with an AR-15, because if you want to go out and shoot a deer, you want to shoot it for the meat, to cut it up and have venison steaks and all with it. You shoot a deer with an AR-15 and you barely got enough left to scrape up to make hamburger patties with. That's just the reality of it. And nobody that uses a weapon needs to have a weapon that fires 30 rounds per second. I mean, if you go to a range, which most people do, I mean, it could take me a half an hour to shoot off 30 rounds at a target. But I think this whole Second Amendment is misinterpreted. It was written by our forefathers at a time when, what were the weapons of choice then? Pistols and muskets.
Musket with a sword at the end.
Yes, yeah, and blades, either Bowie knives or bayonets, and it was it was to protect your property at a time when this country, which started off with 13 states, was going to expand west, and they didn't know what was out there, but you were getting more territory and property, and you needed to protect it and defend it.
And look what they just came from.
Yes.
Of course they were thinking that. And by the way, in Texas, you can use an AR for hunting deer in Texas. Just thought I'd throw that out there. I don't know why.
I don't know why anybody would want to, except just for the thrill of just watching a poor animal.
Of course, and it's a big game hunt, which I'm so sick of that, by the way, but that's a different topic.
Yeah.
The thing is that bothers me the most is, and people do this with what fits them. They like to pick and choose. If you're going to sit there and preach the Second Amendment, then look at what it really says and preach it. And we need to stop looking at that word control and acting like toddlers and say, oh, they're going to take my guns and all that. Let's start talking about responsibility here, because what I'm not hearing from anybody, except for Matthew McConaughey and a few of us that are smart, I'm not hearing from anybody is none of the people over that are, card carrying members of the NRA and waving their flags, and none of the people that are in office here in Texas, and none of the gun toting people around the world, nobody is talking about the fact that this 18-year-old kid and multiple kids, I can go down the list because I have it here if you'd like me to, we're not responsible enough to even have that gun. The only argument I hear, and I'm glad you can attest to this, that the rules and laws of what an 18-year-old can do are backwards.
Yeah.
That we allow an 18-year-old to buy an AR-15, an AR. Okay, can't get a handgun, right? Can't get one, not allowed. Go ahead and walk in the store, pay his money, virtually walk out like this kid did with an AR-15, or whatever style. No problem. If he's got the cash, no problem. Buy a bunch of ammunition, no problem. But we won't even allow this kid to rent a car. You have to be 25
25.
to rent. Why?
And he's not supposed to smoke a cigarette or order a drink
Till he's 21.
21.
Why, we say? Because he's a liability. He's not responsible enough to drive to rent a car, because it's too much liability.
There is a caveat to that, though, Brandon, and that is, I don't think that 18-year-old, and frankly, anybody should be allowed to buy a weapon of mass destruction like an AR-15. Now, having said that, if that young man at 18 signs up at the Selective Service Office to serve in the Army or the Marines or whatever, he can be issued an AR-15 and taught how to shoot it at the enemy, in wartime. So yes, an 18-year-old can get his hands on an automatic weapon, but it's in the sense of military service. That's the part I got the biggest problem with. And
I guess this is what I was getting at. If they can do that, if we are trusting this 18-year-old to be professionally trained in the military and fight for our country, for our lives, to potentially die, what happens when he comes back? Obviously, he's going to be 21 at that point. So, maybe, I don't know. So what happens then? This kid, as he's 18 and he's in the military and he gets to go have some free time, can't go buy a beer. We know that happens. But let's just say on the legal and on paper, can't go buy a beer, but he's allowed to shoot an AR-15. Does that mean that we should change the laws of drinking, change the laws of renting a car? Because to me, if I'm trusting this 18-year-old to defend my 43-year-old's freedom, why can't he have a beer with me?
Well, if he's 18 years old and he serves in the military, believe me, he can go down to the officers club or the NCO club and sit down and have a beer with his fellow,
But he can't come if he gets to get some leave and he's not 21 and Brandon wants to take him out. A bar's going to say no. I mean, I'll probably end up getting him a beer anyway, but you know what I mean? Yeah. So what are we doing here? This structure of how we look, an 18-year-old technically can't rent a hotel room. It can't even rent to sleep, but you can go buy an AR-15.
No matter what rules you have, there's going to be those that are going to be able to get around the rules.
Of course.
Anybody, I don't care if they're 18 or they're 25 or they're 55. If they are disgruntled and they want to get a weapon in order to go shoot somebody, they're going to get it. And the problem is, I think that we need to put our foot down and start to have some deterrence. And part of it starts with the gun dealers. In New Zealand, a couple of years ago, there was a mass shooting in New
Yes.
Zealand. And
Yes.
within a matter of months, they completely rewrote all of the rules and laws in New Zealand. And it started with the dealers. They just put down rules and laws. Canada has stricter rules for
Very strict.
dealers too, and it's up to the dealers. Let's just case in point, Uvalde. This 18-year-old kid goes in and he buys two automatic weapons, and he buys two magazines that hold what was it, 30 rounds each in
He had
each
more than that.
magazine.
He had
Now,
more.
wouldn't there be something when this young kid comes in and buys all of this weaponry and all to the guy that sells it to him? I understand he's got to make a living, but to me, the logical thing is to put some of the blame on the shop owner that sold the weapons, because he had every right when that kid walked out to call the police department and say, listen, I just sold a couple of AR-15s and a lot of ammunition to a young kid. And I don't know whether it's legit, or I don't know whether the kid's got a problem, but you might want to check it out.
Well, then you get, and I understand that. I get the point that you're going for, as far as, yes, there's got to be responsibility on the dealers, but then you walk a fine line too, because are we starting to turn a country and turn people into snitches? Now, granted, look, this kid posted pictures. By the way, he had 1,600 rounds. 1,600.
Yeah. Now, was he going to go shooting? Go shooting for
No.
deer?
No. So here's where the accountability comes from. Yes, I agree with you. The dealers need to have some accountability. They're money hungry, especially here in Texas. They don't care. The reality is, this kid posted pictures of his weapons and posted pictures of his ammunition on social media days before, 3 days before.
Right.
Why was that picture still up? Number one, because social media has cracked down. I've been banned for less. Okay. I got a buddy, my good buddy Prague, who's banned on a daily basis for making jokes. I mean, he's been banned for months. This kid posts pictures, nothing. He sends messages in Facebook to his girlfriend in Germany. In Facebook, Zuckerberg's metaverse, okay?
Right.
Sends them. None of those red flags go off. Nothing happens. He then sends a message to his girlfriend saying, I'm going to go kill my grandma.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Now, the girlfriend and anybody else that sees his Facebook page, nobody stepped up and said,
Nobody.
You know what? This is a small town in Texas and all. This guy, I think he might be up to something. Might be.
Nobody.
That's called probable cause. Go knock on the guy's door and say, I understand that you just bought a couple of weapons and a lot of ammunition. What are you planning to do with it?
Look, there are certain books that if I check out in the library, I'm on the FBI's watch list. How is this guy who posts pictures? And here's the other thing. He sends a text message to his buddy, 16-year-old. Now, I know most 16-year-olds are pretty dumb. Okay, I understand that, especially nowadays. Sorry, 16-year-olds out there, but you guys got to lighten up. Got to get some smarts in you. Sends a text message and says, look what I got. Sends him pictures of the guns. His buddy says, what do you need that for? Wait and see. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care how old I am. Any of my friends do something like that that's completely out of the ordinary. No, I'm going to, number one, talk to them and find out. And I'm telling somebody smarter than me. Look, if you're my buddy and you send me pictures of guns and say, wait and see, guess what? Cops are at your door in 2 seconds, because I'm not waiting and seeing. This kid waited and then said, well, I didn't know. What is going on?
I mean, we're picking on an 18-year-old, but every month there's a story about some guy who's in his 50s or 60s who just got fired from his job and all for whatever reason it was, and he's disgruntled, and he goes down to the local gun shop and he buys multiple weapons, and multiple rounds of ammunition. And he decides he's going to get even with that boss that fired him. And then it makes the news. Then they go back and they say, well, he was a little mentally unstable. It was a mental problem. No, there are flags.
Yes.
You see them but why do we find these flags after the fact? Why does it take 19 children to be slaughtered along with 2 teachers in order for us to say there were red flags and nobody acknowledged them? Nobody did anything about
Well, and I'm going to say it. They came out with these red. Now, we actually had red flags with those legitimate warnings. Then they're trying to say, well, he was picked on. Let me tell you something. Enough with that. Look, I know that bullying and picking on kids, I know that's real, and it's turned into something different than when we were kids, completely different. I understand, but there's a lot of people that have been bullied. There's a lot of people that have been low income and poor and maybe not had the best clothes or car that don't go around and shoot up a school. Okay, this kid was evil, flat out. And I don't know who to blame for it, if he was born that way, because I do believe people are born evil sometimes, or his parents. I don't know. I don't care. All I know is 21 people died because this guy legally bought a gun to specifically do that. We're making it easy. Yes. Are there other weapons used? Yes, absolutely.
And I'm gonna echo the thoughts of an awful lot of other people and say, stop talking about it and do something about it. Why is it that we live in a country where 90% of our population wants something done and they want it done now, but we have our representatives, our elected officials in Washington that are basically a 50-50 split on doing anything?
Why?
And that doesn't add up. It's supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people, because they're in somebody's pocket.
Because they sit there and they are so entrenched in the political game, and they're so entrenched with what's lining their pockets. And forget Washington. Look at Austin.
Yeah.
I call him out. Look at Abbott. Abbott is, look, and I'm not saying I like Beto. I don't like him either. But Abbott, are you kidding me? He has sat there and has lined his pockets and his political party's pockets, basically sleeping with the NRA and every one of these old school, old timers, big wig, gun toting, oil rig people. And he has ignored the people. If you think the government works for you anymore, you are wrong.
And you're spot on. And that is why we've got elections coming up. And if I go to a town rally or whatever, my question to each one of the candidates is, what is your stand on gun control? I mean, there's lots of issues that I want to know how people feel about it and how they're going to vote on it. But if a candidate says to me, the jury's still out on it, I still believe in the Second Amendment and your right to bear arms and everything,
you're out of here.
You ain't getting my vote. Goodbye. Go home.
Well, also,
we live in a state when the whole country is against guns and gun violence and gun control. And we live, unfortunately, in a state that says you don't even have to have a license to own a gun.
Thanks to about a year and a half ago, Greg Abbott made it easier.
Yeah.
And then he wants to sit here and come out and say, well, it's a mental illness thing. Really? Because you took $200 million out of the mental health care that you had set aside for mental health care, and you have now made Texas the worst in the nation when it comes to mental health care. So what is it? It's guns or mental health? Which one?
I think that we're getting back to something that I remember from back in the 60s, and that is we've got to get back to the power to the people. And that is, it's the people that have to rally. I hope that there are more and more demonstrations in front of the Capitol and more media coverage of people saying enough is enough. all the survivors of Parkland and of
Oh,
Uvalde
man.
and every one of these shootings, going out to say, I
Buffalo.
was there, I saw what this did. You've got to make some changes, and you got to make them now. You got to
Well-
get pissed off about it.
And again, and I say this, they're not. You and I are. People
In
we
one
talk
ear, out the other.
They'll march in the street because they don't want to wear a mask because it's infringing on my rights. They'll have
Yeah.
a mask burning party like a bunch of children because it's infringing on my rights. But they won't march on the street when children are dead. You know, and I'm going to get flack for this, and I'm just trying to make a point. I think people should march for what you believe in. March. I'm good. Yes, march.
It's your right.
It's your right. Make them annoyed. Send email after email. Call offices. Be annoying. I'm all for that. Trust me. If anybody knows me, they know how I feel about this. You got people that can march in the streets to protect women's rights on a daily basis, but you can't protect the kids that are alive. Okay.
That's right.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't march for that. If you believe in that, do your thing. I'm just saying, at what point are we going to stop? You can march in the street so you can go to bed at night with your AR-15, but you can't march in the street so your neighbor can go to bed and kiss his kid goodbye tonight. This is a sick situation. And I'm tired of hearing Cruz, Abbott, Beto, Biden, all of them. You know what? Take Cruz and send him back to Cancun. Make him keep him. Because we are in a situation now. Look, President Clinton did an assault rifle ban, and I'm not a big Clinton fan at all, but he did there was a 10-year ban. And guess what went down to almost non-existent? Mass shootings. Then when the 10-year ban was lifted and not renewed and production ramped up, guess what? Guess what went up? It's not to say that mass shootings are just going to disappear off the face of the earth. That's a great thought, and I wish it would.
Right.
But can we stop making it easier? Why are we so against raising the age? If you don't want to ban this weapon, at least raise the age. Why are we against like more detailed background checks? Do you not? That tells me you don't want to protect the people. You
That's
want
right.
people with guns so you can get paid.
And I think there's got to be better control over gun shows to make it less available for people. And again, I just don't understand how people who say they're God loving and God fearing people can be in that business, and they are well aware when somebody comes in and they usually, when I bought my guns, they wanted to know why I had to fill out forms and everything to get approved for it and all. But the dealers themselves, don't they have a heart? They are smart enough to know that there is something fishy about this guy buying all this ammo and these weapons. There is something wrong, and you can come out and say, oh, you're going hunting, and fine. But I think that there has to be a little bit more communication between the gun dealers and the authorities in order to identify maybe that mental health issue and address it before we see these tragic events unfold.
No, I agree with you. Look, the Buffalo shooter, again, broadcasted this. He had a man broadcasted it. Mark Zuckerberg was sitting in his office doing his virtual reality and ignored it. He literally went live as he was putting on his body armor to do it, and nobody did anything. He was under a mental evaluation, but was still able to buy a gun.
That should not happen. That should
in the
not
last
happen.
10 years, just to talk. And look, it's not to say that the AR-15 is the only gun used. There are people that buy multiple guns, but the AR-15 is the point is it's way too easily accessible. That's the point. And look, if you want to ban it, I have no use for it. Okay. If you want to ban it, then you guys figure it out and talk about it. But in the meantime, let's at least add these layers to it to not make it easy for some dumb 18-year-old or psycho to go buy it. So you have an AR-15 in the last 10 years. The AR-15 has been used in 14 mass shootings.
Yeah, it's the gun of choice, and we're
Well-
making it easy for the bad guys to get them.
And the NRA, let's not forget, when the AR-15 came back from the ban, guess what they advertised it as? America's weapon.
Yep.
The AR-15 doesn't care. The AR-15 doesn't, or not the AR-15, the NRA doesn't care. And the people that spoke at the NRA convention don't care either. Because
what's the NRA's answer? They say guns don't kill people, people kill people.
yes, they're right. Guns don't walk down the street and start shooting, okay?
That's right. Yeah.
But they're
You are
idiots.
totally wrong with that statement. And that's appalling to me to hear anybody say people kill people, guns don't kill people.
It's appalling to me that we've got people that sit there and buy that line of bull crap. Well, guns don't kill. Well, cars don't kill people either.
That's right.
Driving car, my car hasn't left the garage to go commit a crime lately.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break. Like, these are the people that are elected. These are the people that are making billions of dollars. And these are people that are allowing our children to get killed. And not just children. I know we keep talking about the school shootings. We have others. Let's not forget MGM Casino. What was it? 30 people? The guy just started
or more. Yeah.
And he had multiple weapons. I mean, this is happening too often.
And in that case, the bellman that helped this guy carry all of this weaponry up to his room said nothing.
I don't understand that.
That's what I'm saying. And the kids today in their schools that are going through active shooter drills, and all, they are taught, see something, say something.
But don't. You know why? Because we as parents, not me and not you, but we as parents sit there and don't do it ourselves and ignore, because kids are like this on their phone, on their laptop. They are in a different world. They want to bitch and moan about society, but they won't do anything, which is why we have to take a stand and instill it in our children. I instill stuff in Luke. I can't tell you. I find it fundamentally disturbing that I have to talk to Luke about guns.
Yeah, well, and also parents are shielding their children from hearing about these stories. Oh, we don't want our child to know about this mass shooting in Uvalde because he's a sensitive child and he's going to get nightmares.
Okay, he should get nightmares. I'm sorry, he should.
In the war in Ukraine, the media goes over there and they start the broadcast by saying, we're going to show you some stuff, and some of the pictures are graphic and could be a little disturbing. And then they show you dead bodies in the streets that were gunned down. Maybe what need to do is to say the same thing about some of our domestic shootings and just say, this is disturbing, but this is what the classroom looked like after this massacre.
Well, most of the time, these kids anyways, if parents want to shield them and protect little Timmy anyway, they find out anyway at school. So and then they don't want to go to school. Don't be reactive, be proactive.
And you're absolutely spot on there. And the way to be proactive is to make sure that we revise the ability for people to get not all guns, certain kinds of guns. And all, if the Second Amendment says a right to bear arms, but we in modern times should have the ability to say right to bear arms, except this one, this one, this one, and this one. Everything else is fair game. You can go and buy that and use that. But these are banned except for military use.
Well, and here's the thing. People forget what the word amendment means anyway. Like, look up the definition of amendment, okay?
Yeah.
And times change, okay? There's also some things in the Constitution that don't apply to today, but they're still there, Yeah, they also used to die at the age of like 25 back then, okay? So we can change things. And again, it's not about control. People are like, well, you know what? We've got to protect ourselves against the government. Let me tell you something. Let me just really break it down for you. And I'm all for, and I watch a lot of movies. So if the government decides to turn on us, which they already have anyway, if they decide to turn on us and you need to protect yourself, I'm all for it. Okay. Figure it out. But let's also break down the reality of that. If the government comes to your door and wants to take your guns, they're going to just do it. And guess who they have behind them? The mighty military. And if you think for a second, and maybe I'm wrong, Stuart, and if I am, tell me I'm dead wrong. If you think for 1 second that the military is not going to listen to the government and not do what they're told, I think you're sadly mistaken. Maybe some of them will defect like they did over in the Ukraine. But the reality is the military is designed to execute what those orders are, whether they want to or not. If the military decides to march down the streets and kick in the doors and look for guns, they're going to do it if the government tells them to.
You are right, and I support that. And I think maybe we should do more of that, and we should take a little bit more of a lead from our friends in Canada and New Zealand, who just said we ain't going to let that happen here. We're going to enact laws and controls that are going to be more pro people and more anti terrorist and bad guys. We got to do it, and we can't keep talking about it, folks, because we are only days away from the next one of these happening. And it is going to happen. It isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
And it's
Brandon
sad.
and I are going to be back on here talking about it. The news media is going to be talking about it, and it's front page news. And we're all sitting there shaking our heads and crying and saying how sorry we are for those families. And the president goes there and consoles the families and everything. Boy, you want to console the families of this nation? Do something about gun control, and do it now.
Do something and at least stop talking. Enough. There's not a process. You guys had plenty of time to talk from the last 12 shootings that happened.
That's right.
And the thing is, and it disturbs me when I did that podcast about the Buffalo shooting with my buddy David, I literally said on that podcast, I recorded that on a Sunday, it was going to drop on a Wednesday. I literally said, man, I just hope nothing happens before this podcast comes out. I dropped it on the Wednesday after the shooting in Texas. I mean, in a week span, in 8 days or 9 days, actually, we had 5 mass shootings. We just had one a couple of weeks ago in Philadelphia. We just had one in Tennessee. Enough now. There and break it and say, well, that was a gang related. Stop. No, we're not. A shooting's a shooting, and a mass shooting is when it's more than 3 people, guys, and the victims. Okay, that's what's happening right now. And I shouldn't have to. And I've always been this guy where. And you can relate to this, where your head's on a swivel. You're always, when you're out in public, you're just kind of watching. You might be hanging out, but you're just kind of looking around. When I go into a restaurant, I never sit with my back to the door. I never have. I want to see what's coming in. I want to know where the exits are or my quick escape. I just always been that guy, especially with kids, Yep. The other day, I was taking a break from work and I was outside. And it was beautiful outside. It was hot, but it was beautiful. And I was sitting down, just chilling. And I work by a school or a daycare preschool thing. And there's always kids outside, playing, yelling, kicking the soccer ball around. And I hear them scream, and I kind of look over real fast, What used to be a joyful scream, you now look. And they have this little fence. It's more or less just to divide their property, make sure the kids don't run out. But I literally sat there for a minute watching these kids, and I said, how many can I grab and get over the fence if something happens? How fast can I run in there? Will I be able to get them all? Where can they hide? Why am I going there? I was at the park with my son, and I kept on seeing this guy running, and all he was doing was running. And around the park, which pretty normal, there's a track.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it was. I just watched him while I played with my son, and I'm like, what if he starts opening fire? I gotta get my son out of here. Like when you take your kids to school back in the day when we were in school, you didn't think about that. The worst thing you thought about was, are they going to act up? Are they going to get in trouble? Maybe get in a fight on the playground. Might be a tornado drill or a fire. Now these kids are going to school having to prepare themselves for a potential shooter.
Exactly.
And the parents have to, I mean, that's not fake. That's not an exaggeration. That's real. That should be the case. And I have to say this too, before we move on. I got love for a lot of police officers out there that work their butts off. It is disgusting that those police officers failed those kids. And I'm going to say it. Blood is on their hands. They're trained to shoot. They are trained to go in. I don't want to hear it's a small town or not. When they just had training in December for mass shooting, they sat there and harassed the parents. That woman just did the interview. She was put in handcuffs. She was released from her handcuffs, ran in and grabbed 3 kids and ran out before the police did anything.
Yeah.
And they had weapons.
Yeah. And well, it's hard to explain what people's emotions are at the time, whatever.
Yeah.
If they are trained to go toward the problem, then that's what you do. You don't run away from the problem and call for backup and wait for something to happen, because it all is going to happen within a matter of minutes.
They stood there for almost an hour, 50 minutes, whatever.
And they're spending more time now talking about all of those issues than about the poor kids and the families that are going to have to live with this grief for the rest of their life.
That are gone, that are done. And what about the kids that survived? You think that they're okay?
No.
I mean, they're at night. I mean, I'm thinking about the kids getting shot. I'm about to tear up. But
yeah,
you're thinking about that. Like, are you kidding? And we want to talk about an investigation and the police. I'm gonna make it simple for you. You work that day, you didn't go in, you're fired. Bye. Next, we're taking your pension. At least you get to live. Next,
right.
Get out of here. Obviously, they don't deserve to have those weapons or that position to protect and serve if they can't protect and serve. And the other thing is, why are we in Congress right now as we speak? We've got people from Sandy Hook, people from Uvalde testifying in Congress. Why should that even be an option? Just do something. They wouldn't have to testify if these lazy politicians got off their asses and actually did something.
90% of the population wants something done, and they want it done now. So Congress, get the message, because I think that if you don't get the message now, you're going to lose a job.
Good.
And the people are going to take to the streets and make sure that it gets done, because we've had enough, and we need to make sure that our government realizes that enough is enough and they do something about it. We could spend an entire day talking about this.
Of course,
we may have to revisit it, and no doubt, as I said at the onset, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's going to happen again, and we'll be talking about it, and we'll be sad about it. And folks, take it to the streets, take it to the polls.
Yes.
And let's get something done. And
I agree.
And sorry for being so damn serious, but this is a serious subject. And hopefully you'll join us next week, and we'll try and flip the page and come back and say something a little bit more nonsensical.
We will. And in the meantime, I do want to follow up with that before we go. You ask yourself what you can do. A lot of us, we feel angry, sad. We ask ourselves what we can do. March, get behind a cause, vote people out locally. Forget Washington. Start in your own backyard. Take time out. Attend a town hall meeting. Watch a town hall meeting. A lot of them online around Frisco. They're online. Go online. Find out what these people stand for real. Get them out of here. Because if you start voting people locally. I have more faith in the local vote than I do the stupid federal vote. Trust me, than the big wig. That's garbage. But
Right.
you start removing mayors, congressmen, governors, things change where you live, and you've got to protect where you live because that's where you live. So you can start doing stuff like that's all.
Absolutely right. Folks, thanks for spending time with us. I hope you'll share this show with your friends too. And so that maybe it'll light a fire under them too, to get things done and do something. We'll see you again next week.